Doctor, I'm not a doctor, it's an honorary award. I didn't even go to university. And I think, if you don't mind, I will talk something about my education because it colours what I want to say later. I went to about 7 or 8 schools before I was 11 years old because there was a war on. And I was evacuated, and my dad worked in pubs, so we moved around the country a great deal. But my last junior school had an inspirational headmistress called Miss Markham, and she decided that a few of us could go for a scholarship for the grammar school because this was before the Great Education Act. And I passed my scholarship. She did actually phone them up because there'd been a terrible air raid the night before, and I think possibly that may have coloured it a little bit. But however, I got into grammar school. And David Willits will probably be interested about this because I've been looking you up on the web, and I believe you're fairly anti-grammar school. And so am I. I had the most wonderful education there. But all my friends, apart from 4 of us of a class of 50, were considered failures and sent to a secondary modern or the Tech, both of which were diabolical schools. Not only that, but even with getting my free fees, I had to pay for an awful lot of things. For instance, a school uniform. I was the only girl at the school who had a homemade tunic and knitted knickers. So when it came to the fact that the grammar school teachers, who were wonderful, thought that I could go for a state scholarship, I didn't. And this is for university. And one of the reasons I didn't was the expense. My parents couldn't even contemplate all the extra things that I would have to have for university. But also it's a fact that neither my parents nor I knew anybody who had been to university, not a soul. Now that is one of the reasons why I am delighted to be a Chancellor of Portsmouth University, because we have many students who are first generation in their family to come to a university. And you talk about the duties of a Chancellor, one of my favourite duties is welcoming the parents at beginning of term. And I imagine how fearful my parents would have been, and indeed I was when my daughter went to Cambridge, having had no experience of university, and I hope I make them feel at home. Another one of my duties, and I think all Chancellors' duties, is to support my Vice-Chancellor. Now, I'm very lucky in this because my Vice-Chancellor is the amazing Professor John Craven. John is the longest-serving Vice-Chancellor, and he hasn't lost one single bit of his energy and dedication to what he's doing. And I feel deeply privileged to be alongside him. And what I try to do is I try to meet all the staff as often as I can, and certainly the students and the Students' Union. And I relay back to John possibly things that other people might not tell him about, things that are causing disquiet of some sort. So therefore of course I have to do graduation and all that stuff, which I love. We're doing 3 graduations a day next time, a fortnight of 3 graduations a day. Pretty exhausting. And the other thing I do is I liaise as much as I can with the city. I think it's very important that people are aware of the importance of universities in their city. Our university has provided a lot of amazing buildings to Portsmouth. Our kids work as volunteers, and they work in bars, and they subsidise the bars, I have to say, but they work incredibly hard. And we go into schools, as do I. And if I might say, there's an awful lot of talk of going into secondary schools and persuading people that they should go to university. But I think you have to start at primary school. It's absolutely vital. I remember not long after I'd taken on being a Chancellor, I went into the square in front of where we graduate, and there were lots of little tiny folk wearing gowns and caps and throwing them up in the air. And what it was a group of kids from the local primary who were being shown what it's like. And I swear to God that those kids will not be like me, they won't be put off, and they will choose to go to university. So I am deeply proud to be Chancellor of Portsmouth. And which is what makes me very angry is when I read in the press and I hear MPs and I hear journalists saying, we must get more working class kids to Oxford and Cambridge. What about all the other universities? We provide an amazing service for kids like that. We have support, we have psychological support, we have financial support, and the sort of courses they are doing send them into the world as experience. We fill out the workforce. We have paramedics, we have policemen, we have social workers, we have engineers. Let us not downgrade all the other universities other than the Russell Group by the way that we talk about them. A lot of people say to me now, smart people at dinner parties, not that I go to dinner parties, but those sort of people, don't you think there's too many people at university? Media studies. Oh God, how I'm sick of hearing about media studies. Happens to be a damn good course, actually. It teaches them to criticize and think. However, I say to them, no, I would like everybody to go to university. In the old days, people used to say they ought to bring back conscription. No! A lot of my friends were conscripted after the war, and it didn't do them any good at all. Going to university, you learn self-discipline, you learn empathy, you learn to live with one another, you learn about other countries, and please God we don't lose some of our international students. It's vital, the things that they learn. They learn aspiration, they learn self-respect. I see people come in as freshers, and when I see them at the graduation ceremony, they are totally, totally transformed. Now, in the fees argument, I haven't heard a lot about that aspect of university. I've heard them being told that they should pay for their education because they're going to get ever such good jobs and make a lot of money at the end of it. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of talk about the other things that you can do. And let's not forget that society owes them a debt. Society would not function without our educated young. I'm old enough to remember, sadly, when free education came in and free health and all those sorts of things. And the liberation that was to people like my parents. And what we felt in return was a duty to our country. However, let's not have all that sloppy idealistic talk. We now are a market economy. The die is cast. But I do worry about the people from my sort of background, and they still exist. We have many of them. I think we have about 1,400, do we not, in the first year? I think Clegg and Cameron and Willits and Osborne are great. They have vision, they have ambition, they have energy. But they have no idea what it's like to be poor. And Cameron, to his everlasting credit, has come to a place I work called Kids Company, where he sees a lot of disaffected youngsters. But they don't really know. They don't really know what it's like for your annual wage to be less than they were paid to private schools for 1 year. And I've been told, and I know this is the propaganda, that fees have been no deterrent when it was put to 3,000. But I think there's a hell of a difference between 3,000 and 6,000 to 9,000 and a £40,000 debt or more when you come out. I don't know what the figures are because I've tried to research this diligently, but they're all different. It's terrifying. That sort of thing from families like that is absolutely terrifying. And the message is not getting through. More work really has to be done. I was helping a kid last week to do an audition for the youth theatre, which is also being cut, but that's another story. And I was telling her that she's very talented. I was telling her that she must go to university, because in order to be an actor nowadays, you have to have a background of history, literature, sociology, all sorts of things. You have to be a well-rounded person. And she said, oh, I was going to go, but I can't now. I can't afford it. And I promise you, 3 kids in the last 2 weeks have said exactly that to me. And I've tried to explain to them that they don't have to pay up front. They pay when they start working. And I told the one who's going to be an actress, you'll never earn enough money to pay it back anyway, so you'll be all right. But it's not getting through. It really isn't. So what am I saying? I am saying, please, please, don't forget, it's the biggest regret in my life that I didn't go to university. People think how lucky I am. I've got lots of wonderful things. But it's given me a considerable disadvantage in life. One of the reasons I'm terrified of facing all you is because I feel inadequate, because I didn't have that kind of educational background. Please, please don't deprive people of that. Let's get as many people as we can to university. And please don't let's turn universities into a job market. Students saying demanding value for money is not the best guide as to what courses that should be done and the changes that should be made in university, I beg to suggest. Multiculturalism is a thing that's very much discussed at the moment. And I think a country is identified by its culture. I would think that, wouldn't I? But I do believe that. Culture in the broadest sense. And universities have always been in the vanguard of culture, and they need to continue to be that. We need to guard that well. It's not just a job market. Now, I'm sure John is feeling incredibly embarrassed about me now, so I will shut up. And incidentally, John told me last week that in all his 14 years, this is the most challenging time he has ever faced in university. And I'm sure that's true of all of you. But I'm absolutely certain that John will cope, and I'm absolutely certain that all of you will continue to do what you've always done, which is put our young people to the forefront and to improve the country. Thank you very much.